The day it all happened began like any other, though looking back now, I can see the warning signs written everywhere. The way my daughter-in-law's eyes flicked over me like I was some kind of nuisance. The way my son avoided holding my gaze at breakfast. The house felt colder, even though the heater was humming as always. For years, I had lived under their roof, not because I lacked means, but because they insisted. After my husband passed, my son had said, "Mom, come live with us. You'll never be alone." And I believed him. I believed in his promise. But promises, I would soon learn, are easier spoken than kept. That morning, I shuffled into the kitchen to make myself some tea. The kettle whistled and I poured the water slowly, savoring the sound, the warmth rising in the air. My daughter-in-law, Lisa, walked in, her arms folded across her chest, lips pursed. She didn't greet me. She hadn't in weeks. Instead, she muttered, "You've been here long enough." I froze, spoon halfway to the cup. "What do you mean?" I asked, though deep inside, I already knew. Lisa leaned against the counter, her face hard. "This isn't your house. You're crowding us. We need our own space, our own life. You should find somewhere else." Her words landed like stones, each one heavier than the last. For a moment, the room seemed to spin. Somewhere else? I had given my son life, raised him with every ounce of love, stood by him when he had nothing, and now I was too much? Before I could answer, my son walked in. I turned to him, searching his face for reassurance, for some shred of the boy I once knew. But his eyes slid away, and he mumbled, "Lisa's right, Mom. It's time." My heart cracked, silent and sharp. "Time?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "You're asking me to leave?" He wouldn't meet my gaze. He just rubbed the back of his neck, shifting uncomfortably, and muttered, "It's better for everyone." Lisa smiled then, a thin, triumphant curl of her lips. She had won. I walked out of the kitchen, the tea untouched, and sat in my room. My hands shook as I folded my few clothes into a bag. Every corner of the house carried memories. My husband laughing in the living room, my son as a child running down the hallway. I had given them everything, and now I was being pushed out like yesterday's trash. The sky was darkening when I carried my bag to the front door. Neither of them came to help. My son stood off to the side, guilt written across his face, but no courage behind it. Lisa crossed her arms, satisfied. I turned to my son one last time. I never thought I'd see the day when my own child would cast me aside. He flinched, but said nothing. The door closed behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. That night, I sat alone in a small, cheap motel room. The air smelled of dust and loneliness. I stared at the ceiling and asked myself, where had I gone wrong? How had love turned into exile? But little did I know, fate was already turning its gears. The call that would change everything was closer than I imagined.
"I can forgive you," I said, "but I cannot forget. Trust, once broken, is not easily rebuilt. You may come to visit, you may call me, but you will not bring her here, not into this house, not into the place I fought to protect." He nodded slowly, swallowing his pride. "I understand." He left soon after, and I watched him walk away from the window, his figure fading into the night. My heart ached, but it no longer bled. The following week, Marcus helped me establish something new. A foundation in my husband's name, designed to protect elderly individuals facing exploitation by family. "Too many stories like yours," Marcus said, sliding the final papers across the desk. "You've been given a voice. Now you can make sure others aren't silenced." And so, the White Legacy Foundation was born. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every elder who had been mocked, ignored, or stolen from by the very people meant to protect them. One evening, as I addressed a small gathering of supporters, I told my story openly. Faces in the audience nodded, some with tears in their eyes. When I finished, the applause wasn't loud, but it was steady, heartfelt. And in that moment, I knew my pain had been turned into purpose. Lisa never came near me again. Rumors spread that she was furious, her pride shattered, her schemes exposed. Good. Let her stew in the shadows. As for my son, he called occasionally, his voice softer each time, as though he was trying to bridge the gap he had helped create. I answered, but always with boundaries. He needed to understand that love, without respect, was nothing more than a chain, and I had broken free. One night, as I sat by the fireplace, the crackling flames casting warmth over the room, I whispered to my husband's photograph, "They tried to erase me. They tried to take everything we built. But I stood tall. I honored your trust, and I turned their betrayal into strength." The fire flickered, as if in response, and I felt a peace settle over me that I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a victory in court. It was a victory of spirit, a victory of dignity. And to anyone listening, anyone who had ever been pushed aside, silenced, or stolen from by those they loved most, I wanted my story to be proof. Proof that even in the darkest hours, you can rise, you can fight, and you can win. So when I'm asked, what changed everything overnight, my answer is simple. It wasn't just the lawyer's call. It was the moment I decided I would no longer be silent. It was the moment I chose myself. And that is something no one, not Lisa, not my son, not anyone, can ever take away again. That evening, I returned to the house Lisa had so confidently claimed just weeks earlier. The locks had been changed back, the papers signed in my favor. The air felt different, lighter, freer, as if the walls themselves knew they had been saved from falling into greedy hands. I walked through each room slowly, my fingertips brushing along familiar furniture. The photographs of my late husband still lined the hallway, his smile steady and warm. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like an intruder in my own life. In the kitchen, the very place Lisa once sneered at me for being too slow, I brewed myself a cup of tea. The kettle whistled softly, and I sat at the table, breathing in the silence. Then, the doorbell rang. I opened it to see my son standing alone, shoulders slumped, eyes rimmed with regret. "Mom?" he began, but the word broke apart like glass. I said nothing, waiting. "She's furious," he whispered. "She said it's your fault. She said you ruined everything. But I know it's not true. I let her talk me into it. I laughed when I should have defended you. I stood by her when I should have stood by you, and now," his voice cracked, "now I don't know if you'll ever forgive me." The pain in his words was real, but the wound he'd carved in me still ached. "Son," I said quietly, "forgiveness doesn't erase choices. You stood silent when I needed you loudest. You turned your head when I was cast out. That silence was as sharp as any knife." His eyes filled with tears. "I was weak. I let her control me. But I'm here now, begging for a second chance." I studied him. The boy I once held in my arms, the man who had let his wife treat me like a stranger, The mother in me wanted to gather him close, but the woman I had become knew better. When the court date finally arrived, the courthouse steps felt heavier than stone under my feet. Marcus walked beside me, his calm presence a steady anchor. Inside, Lisa sat with her lawyer, her face painted with false sweetness. My son sat beside her, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. The judge entered, and the air shifted. Marcus presented the evidence first, the deeds, the bank accounts, the insurance papers. He laid it all out like a map of truth, every line pointing back to me. The judge nodded along, scribbling notes. Then Lisa's lawyer rose, spinning tales about me being forgetful, confused, too old to understand what I was signing. He painted me as a burden, a woman clinging to what wasn't hers. I clenched my fists, biting back anger. But when it was my turn, I stood. My voice trembled at first, but it grew steadier with every word. I may be old, I told the judge, but I am not blind, I am not weak, and I am not confused. My husband trusted me, loved me, and he left these things to me. Not to her, not to anyone else, to me. Because he knew I would cherish them, not squander them. Because he knew I had stood by his side when we had nothing, and I would honor what we built together. The courtroom fell silent. Even Lisa's smirk faltered. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. White, do you have proof of interference in these matters? Marcus handed over my notebook. Every call, every threat, every word Lisa had thrown at me, documented in my careful handwriting. He skimmed a page, then another, his brow furrowed. Noted, he said firmly. By the end of the day, the decision was clear. The assets remained in my name. Lisa's attempts to undermine me were struck down as baseless. Lisa's face flushed red, her composure cracking. She hissed something at my son, but he sat frozen, staring at me with wide, hollow eyes. I walked out of that courthouse taller than I'd ever felt. I had been cast out, called a burden, treated like nothing. But now the law itself had spoken. I was not nothing. I was the rightful heir, the rightful owner, the rightful woman standing in my husband's legacy. On the courthouse steps, reporters swarmed. Microphones reached out, cameras flashed. One of them asked, Mrs. White, how does it feel to win against your own family? I paused, then answered with the truth burning in my chest. This was never about winning. It was about surviving, about respect, about proving that no matter your age, your voice matters. My son may have forgotten that. My daughter-in-law may have ignored it. But today, the world was reminded. The cameras clicked, the crowd buzzed, but all I felt was peace settling in my chest. Lisa had tried to break me. Instead, she made me unshakable. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, documents, and meetings with Marcus. Each time I sat across from him, I felt stronger, more sure of myself. He explained every paper, every clause in language I could understand. Your husband wanted you to be safe, he said more than once, and now it's time to claim what's yours. But word travels fast, and Elisa was quicker than I expected. It started with a knock at the motel door. I opened it cautiously, and there she stood, arms crossed, eyes blazing. So it's true. You went crawling to a lawyer. I held her gaze, my hand steady on the doorframe. I didn't crawl, Lisa. I stood up, something you didn't expect me to do. Her face twisted with rage. You think you can take what's mine? Yours? I shot back. These were never yours. Not a cent, not a stone, not a single brick of the house my husband left. You wanted me gone so you could bury the truth. But it didn't work. She shoved a finger toward me. You won't win. You're old, fragile, alone. Who's going to believe you over me and my husband? I smiled then, not out of joy, but out of the ironed certainty building inside me. The law will. The evidence will. And one day even your lies won't shield you. I closed the door in her face, my heart pounding, but my back straight. I refused to let her see me tremble. Later that night, Marcus called. We filed the initial claim. The court date is set for next month. They'll try everything to shake you, Mrs. White. You need to be ready. I've been shaken enough, I told him. This time, I'll be the one standing. The weeks leading up to the hearing were some of the hardest of my life. Lisa left voicemails dripping with venom. You'll regret this. You're ruining your son's life. You should have just left quietly. But I didn't back down. Instead, I started keeping a notebook. Every threat, every call, every cruel word she hurled at me. If she wanted a fight, I would fight with truth and proof. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was sharper, stronger, born of resilience. As I left the office that day, the sun seemed brighter, the city more alive. I wasn't the helpless old woman Lisa thought I was. I was a widow, with rights, with property, with a lawyer who believed in me. Back at the motel, I sat on the bed, clutching the documents to my chest. My son's face haunted me, his silence, his complicity. Did he know about this too? Or had Lisa kept it from him as well? I didn't have to wait long for answers. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was my son. His voice was shaky. Mom, where are you? Lisa said you disappeared and, well, she mentioned something about lawyers. Is it true? I hesitated, my throat tight. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to demand why he had thrown me out without a thought. But another part, the mother in me, still longed for him to understand. Yes, I said firmly. It's true. I met with a lawyer today, and I know everything now. About the house, about the accounts, about how your wife tried to keep it from me. There was silence on the line, then a sharp intake of breath. I didn't know, he whispered. She never told me. She just said you didn't have anything left, that we were carrying you. My heart ached at his words. Carrying me? I carried you for decades. I gave you everything. And when I needed a place to rest, you threw me out? Mom, please, he began. But I cut him off. No, I said, my voice steady. The truth is finally on my side, and I won't let either of you take it from me again. I hung up before he could answer. My hands shook, but not from fear this time, from strength. For the first time since being cast out, I was standing tall again. That night, I opened my husband's photo, set it on the nightstand, and whispered, You took care of me even after death, and I promise I'll take care of what you left behind. The motel room was still small, still lonely, but inside me a fire had been lit, and it was only the beginning. The law office was tucked inside a tall glass building downtown, a place that seemed too polished for someone like me in my simple dress and worn shoes. As I stepped into the lobby, I felt the weight of eyes on me, but I lifted my chin. I wasn't here to blend in. I was here to fight. Marcus greeted me personally, a tall man with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Mrs. White, please come in. His office smelled of leather and old books, the kind of scent that spoke of both authority and trust. He gestured for me to sit and slid a thick folder across the desk. Your husband, God rest his soul, was meticulous. He ensured you'd never be without. Unfortunately, for reasons we're still investigating, these documents weren't filed with you after his passing. It seems someone deliberately interfered. I opened the folder, my hands trembling. Inside were deeds, bank records, and letters all bearing my name. The most shocking was a deed to a house, larger than anything I had ever dreamed of, fully paid off and in my name alone. Tears welled in my eyes. I never knew. Marcus leaned forward. That's because someone didn't want you to know. We have reason to believe your daughter-in-law may have tampered with correspondence. We're looking into her access to the estate documents. A wave of heat surged through me. Lisa! I should have known. Her constant snooping, her controlling nature, it all made sense now. She hadn't just wanted me out of her house, she wanted to make sure I never knew what was rightfully mine. Marcus continued, Mrs. White, here's the good news. Everything in this folder is legally binding. We'll secure it in court if we have to. But for now, you must know, you are not powerless. You hold the stronger hand.
Yes, I whispered, my throat dry. Mrs. White, thank you for calling. I'm glad we reached you. Your late husband's estate has recently come under review, and it appears there are matters that were never properly disclosed to you. You are entitled to significant holdings, both financial and property. We need to discuss this in detail. For a moment, the room tilted. Property? Holdings? My husband had never spoken of anything grand. We'd always lived comfortably, but simply. There must be a mistake, I said softly. No mistake, Marcus assured me. Your husband left you as the sole beneficiary of several assets, including a house in your name. Unfortunately, it seems there have been attempts to withhold this information from you. My chest tightened. Attempts? My thoughts immediately went to Lisa. She had always been nosy with documents, always hovering whenever the mail came. Could she have known? Could my son have? Marcus continued. Mrs. White, I'd like you to come into the office tomorrow. We'll go through everything together. And one more thing. Do not share this information with anyone until we've secured the paperwork. The line clicked off, leaving me clutching the phone, my mind racing. For the first time since I left the house, I felt a glimmer of strength rising in me. Maybe Lisa thought she had won. Maybe my son believed casting me aside was the end of my story. But they had no idea what was waiting. That night, I lay awake in the motel bed, replaying everything. Lisa's smug face, my son's silence, my husband's memory. And now this lawyer, this unexpected chance. It was as if fate had been waiting for the right moment to hand me the keys to justice. I whispered into the darkness. They wanted me gone, but they have no idea what's coming. And with that, I finally fell asleep, not with despair, but with resolve. Tomorrow, everything would begin to change.
The next morning, the sun crept in through the thin motel curtains, but it didn't bring warmth. My body ached from the stiff mattress, and my spirit felt heavier than ever. I sat up slowly, clutching the little photo of my late husband I always carried in my purse. His smile in that picture had been my anchor through storms, but even his eyes seemed to ask me, "Why are you here alone when you gave everything?" I made myself a weak cup of instant coffee from the tiny kettle on the counter. As the bitter liquid burned down my throat, I tried to think clearly. I had enough savings tucked away to keep myself afloat for a while, but not enough for the long run. My life had been rooted in that home, and in a matter of hours, it had all been ripped away. I wandered to the motel lobby later that morning, needing fresh air and maybe a friendly face. That's when the desk clerk handed me a small envelope. "This came for you," she said, eyeing me with curiosity. I hadn't told anyone where I was staying. Inside was a crisp letterhead from a law office I vaguely recognized, one that had handled some of my late husband's business affairs. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. It said, "We request that you call our office immediately regarding urgent matters of inheritance and property rights. Please do not delay. This is time sensitive." My breath caught. Inheritance? Property rights? My husband and I had always lived modestly, but I knew he'd taken care of paperwork years ago. At the time, I never pried. He was always so diligent, and I trusted him. Now, after being cast out, the thought that something remained with my name on it stirred a flicker of hope. I dialed the number with shaking fingers. After a few rings, a calm male voice answered. "This is Marcus Lee, attorney at law. Is this Mrs. Eleanor White?"